Which of the following is one of the main functions of myth? Let us refer to the first 3 lines of the first paragraph. Myth has 2 main functions. The poet and scholar Robert Graves wrote in 1955. The first is to answer the sort of awkward questions that children ask, such as who made the world, how will it end, who was the first man, where do souls go after death. The second function of myth is to justify an existing social system and account for traditional rites and customs. Let us look at the options. Option A, to answer questions that are yet unexplained by science. This option talks of questions unexplained by science, while the passage does not mention science at all. Option B, to satisfy the curiosity of children about our world. This option is lined with the first main function of myth as mentioned by the passage. Option C, to explain the rationale behind everyday rituals. This option talks of rituals while the passage talks of rites and customs which are not the same. Option D, to answer the unanswerable questions. This passage does not talk of unanswerable questions. Unanswerable questions means questions that cannot be answered, and the passage does not refer to such questions. So the correct answer to this question is option B. What is the difference between Hindu and Greek mythology? Let us refer to the first line of the second paragraph. In Greek mythology, there is no single original text like the Christian Bible or the Hindu Vedas that introduces all of the myths, characters and stories. Let us come back to the options. We can see that the lines clearly support option B. Option B says, in Hindu mythology, all stories and characters can be explained by a single text or collection, but this is not true of Greek mythology. The other options A, C and D are not supported by the passage, and hence option B is the correct answer to this question. Who created the first story of Greek mythology? Now the passage does not talk of the first story of Greek mythology. It simply talks of the origins of Greek mythology, which is not the same as the very first story of Greek mythology. Hence we cannot determine as to who created the first story of Greek mythology. So the correct answer is option D, cannot be determined from the passage. What is the role played by theogony in Greek mythology? Let us refer to the second line of the third paragraph. The second line says, the theogony tells the story of the universe's journey from nothingness to being and details an elaborate family tree of elements, gods and goddesses who evolved from chaos and descended from Gaia, Oranos, Pontos and Tartaros. Let us look at the options. It tells the story of how the world began. This option is in line with what we just read. Option B, it introduces the 4 main characters of Greek mythology. Now the lines that we read do not define who the 4 main characters of Greek mythology are, so this option is incorrect. Option C, it helps explain the myth of chaos. Now the lines that we read only mention chaos, but they do not explain the myth of chaos, so option C is also incorrect. Option D, it tells the story of the earth and the sky. Now these lines do not talk only of the earth and the sky, so option A is the correct answer to this question. What does the author mean by Pantheon of Deities? Let us refer to the last para of the passage. At the center of Greek mythology is the Pantheon of Deities who were said to live on Mount Olympus, the highest mountain in Greece. From their perch, they ruled every aspect of human life. Olympian gods and goddesses look like men and women, although they could change themselves into animals and other things, and were, as many myths recounted, vulnerable to human foibles and passions. Now, these lines suggest that the pantheon of deities refer to Olympian gods and goddesses, that is, the gods and goddesses who lived on Mount Olympus. When we look at the options, we can see that option D, group of gods, is in line with the suggestion. So option D is the correct answer. Temple of all gods, realm of the heroes, places of worship is not really in line with the lines that are mentioned in the passage. So option D is the correct answer. What were the similarities between Olympian gods and human beings? Let us look at the last line of the passage again. Olympian gods and goddesses look like men and women and were, as many myths recounted, vulnerable to human foibles and passions. Sentence A. These gods look like humans. Definitely. They had weaknesses like humans. This is also true. Option C. Sentence C. They were as passionate as humans. Now the passage says that they were vulnerable to passions like human beings. This is not the same as being as passionate as human beings. So only sentences A and B are true, and hence option A is the correct answer to this question.